This is a super easy writing tip that you can implement and instantly make your book better. It is one of my favorite things to do while self-editing my books because it's really low effort and it makes a real difference. Like, I don't need to use a lot of brain cells to do this, but it makes a difference when reading my prose. So it's really very satisfying to do. I'm going to talk to you today about filler versus filtering words, exactly what the difference between these two are, and explain why it's good to remove them from your writing. So first, what is the difference between a filler word and a filtering word? A filtering word is a word or phrase that filters the prose through the perspective of the main character. They put a barrier between the reader and your character, which makes things not very immersive. I like to think of them as POV reminders, like they remind the reader that they are reading a story about another person and not experiencing the things that are happening in the story themselves. Examples of filtering words include phrases such as I feel, I see, I hear. Like, instead of writing the door slams, if you use a filtering word, you would write I hear the door slam. This is not as immersive because as the reader, you don't need to know that the character is hearing the door slam. You just need to know that the door is slamming. So phrases like this bulk up your writing and make it harder for the reader to really immerse themselves into the world that you're creating. Meanwhile, a filler word is a word that goes into your writing that doesn't add any meaning to the sentence that it's in. In speech, examples of filler words could be things like or like. But in writing, examples of filler words include things like just or probably or definitely, or maybe these little pesky overused words that if you're like me, you use a lot when you're writing and drafting your books. Sometimes filler words do add rhythm to a sentence that you're writing, or if you're like me and write in the first person from the POV of teenagers, it adds an element of realism and makes the speech more casual to have some filler words in there. Just also does alter the meaning of some sentences depending on how you use it. Not always. A lot of times you can do without it, but sometimes it does alter the meaning. So does definitely or probably if characters are unsure of something that may or may not happen. But it is generally good advice to try and remove as many filter and filler words from your book as possible. This is one of my favorite things to do when I'm self-editing my books because it's very low effort. It doesn't take a lot of thought. I can just have my whole book up in a Word document, Command F that Word document, search for all of those filler or filter words, and just delete them as they come up. I have some that I tend to use more than others. I use probably and just all the time. I also use definitely a lot. And I have a little list that I made for myself of words that I always search for and delete from my books, both filter and filler words. So why is it important to delete these words from your book? Because they clutter your writing. Filter words are never good because reminding readers that they're reading typically pulls them out of the story and makes your writing less immersive. And people read because they like to be immersed into a story, and so that's just not good practice. Filler words are helpful when you're trying to make dialogue sound casual or convey a very specific meaning where you need one of those filler words. But in, I dare say 85% of cases, you probably don't need that filler word there. Like in that sentence I just said, you don't need that filler word there. A lot of filler words dilute the meaning of your sentences. They make your book clunky, and you'd be surprised by how many words you can cut out of a book by just deleting the filler words. You want to make your writing as clear and easy to read as possible. You don't want to dilute the meaning and use words that don't add anything to your story. Of course, the disclaimer to this is art. You are an artist when you write, and sometimes choosing to use filler or filter words does change the meaning of the sentence in a way that is purposeful and good and important, and it is your artistic decision as to whether or not to include them and where. It's just generally good practice to try to get rid of as many as possible and only keep the ones that are doing something to the sentences in your story. So I could spend the rest of this video giving you a very long list of some filter words and filler words to cut from your writing, but I feel like that's not very helpful for you to just watch the video and for me to put them up on the screen and then you like write them down or take notes while you're watching the video. So I went ahead and I made a little Google Doc for you that I've linked in the description of this video so that you can just go there and download that list and then you can see them all there. And what I would recommend doing is just looking at that list and going and checking and like Command F, search for those terms in your manuscript or in your story, and just see how many times they crop up. Maybe you're really good and don't use just that much. Maybe you don't use probably, but maybe you use kind of all the time. You need to figure that out for yourself and learn that about yourself. So I would go just search through and see how many times that they pop up. There's no set number of like how many usages are appropriate. I would say that go through and see how many seem superfluous to you and how many are purposeful and edit them down from there. My criteria for keeping one in is if it either changes the meaning of the sentence or it just wouldn't sound like something that the main character or character who said it would say without that filtering word there. Like maybe it would just sound stilted or weird. And then once you look at the list, go put on a song that you like and Command F to your heart's content and search through your book and delete all of those filtering words just because it's fun and you can kind of listen to music and have a good time while you do it, which is not something that you can do when you do other parts of the editing process that really force you to use your brain. There are also probably ways you can get AI to do this for you now. Like if you just go in and ask it to remove all of the filtering words. I don't trust it not to go off the rails completely. Like if I gave them a full chapter and I'm like, remove the word just, I don't trust that it's only going to do that. Like it might also do other stuff and then I will cut and paste it into my manuscript and not read it back over and that stresses me out. But one thing that you could do now that I'm thinking about it, which I have started doing when using AI to edit my books, is if you write in Word, you can paste the original document into one Word document. You can run the chapter through AI and say, remove all usage of the word just, and put that, like, then you copy and paste that and you put that in a second Word document. And then you can go up into the like navigation bar and you ask it to compare documents and you compare the original versus the new ChatGPT edited version, and Word will give you a new Word document with every single change between the original and the new highlighted as a track change for you to accept or deny. And so this is really helpful because you can go through every single change that the AI has made to your book and you can accept it or deny it, just like you would if a human editor sends you back edits to a chapter. Either way, you're going through your book and you're deciding whether or not you want to keep in the word just. So honestly, just Command Fing, I think, is still the way to go, even in the age of AI. But you do you and figure out what you like to do the best and what saves you the most time and is best for your process. That's it for this video on filler versus filtering words. Go make sure to check out the document that I have created for you in the description of this video. I hope that this was helpful. If it was, I'd be super grateful if you could give this video a like and also subscribe to my channel. My name is Claire Fraze, and I'm an award-winning author who makes videos on this channel sharing actionable writing tips that helped me make my own writing better. I'm the author of the paranormal thriller They Stay series, including some other paranormal thriller books that I am excited to release at some point soon. I just finished one over the weekend, which is like my first standalone book ever that I've ever written. And it is also a paranormal thriller, and I'm super jazzed about it because this is the first book that I've finished that hasn't been in the They Stay series since high school, so that was really cool. I have this one standalone I was working on from high school to college that just was this endless writing process. If you want to hear more about that book, you can go watch last week's video where I rambled about every single book that I'd ever written for about 40 minutes. If you all want to play my favorite icebreaker, which is called What Filler Word is the Bane of Your Existence, I would be super happy to do that. I'll go first. Mine is probably, post yours in the comment section below. I'd be really happy to hear what filtering or filler words that typically are difficult for you to edit out when you write your books. Another thing that I didn't mention earlier is don't do this until you have a finished draft of your book. You don't need to be doing this during the drafting process. Just do this when you're actually at the self-editing stage. Do not torture yourself. Just write the story and then figure out editing when you're actually ready to edit the book later. I hope you have a fantastic week, everybody. And as always, happy writing.